Hi, hello, dear community. It's a pleasure to be here and to introduce my friend Joan Romero. So, Joan is a specialist in psychology, and I must say, uh, she was a beacon for me during an important part of my career. Having said that, yes, we met in the logistic background. Wow. She was actually developing talent. And if there's someone who has an eye for talent, it's her. And we both face challenges as we were in a male dominated environment. So when we came to this idea of assertiveness, um, Joan Amelie was my top of mind. And I'm very glad to let her share her experience. Beyond a career, it's also a talent. She has a gift for developing talent and dealing with this important aspect of our careers. So thank you, Joan. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Angie. And hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly glad to be here with you today. We are going to talk about assertiveness. Um, and let's make it a conversation. If you have any questions, just post them in the chat as I'm speaking. And also, I think that you are seeing at the screen a word that might seem out of context, which is regret. Yes, regret. I know that we are here to explore, communication and assertiveness, but as we go through this journey and in my experience, I hope that also you'll get to see it. Assertiveness and regret, they are deeply connected. So we're going to be talking also about regret today. Um, Before I keep it going, just wanted to make sure. Are you guys hearing me okay? Yes, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm seeing something weird on my screen, but it seems like everything is okay. Got it. Okay, so let's do this. I'm Joan. You can call me Joan Emily as well. That's my second name. As Angie said, I'm a psychologist and an HR professional. I have been working in people operations team for more than 10 years now. I'm currently leading a people operations team for a technology company. But before that experience, I spent many years working in the oil and gas and logistic industry. And a little fun fact, I come from a family of psychologists. My mom, my dad, my sister, we are all psychologists. So it has been a important part of my everyday life, science forever. I truly believe, of course, that this has shaped me into different people leader. This thing that human is at the center of everything is part of how I grew up. So yeah, I also have a postgrad in creativity, but more than degrees or titles, I believe that what really matters is how we make people feel with our day-to-day interactions, either at work or at life in general. And that brings us to the heart of the conversation, which is what I hope that you get to discover the most today. I hope that beyond any titles that I just explained, you get to know a chunk of my personality, of who I am through my words. But I also hope that you ask yourself, how or who does your word says that you are? Because that is assertiveness at its core. Who your words says that you are. I've been probably just exactly like you, called that maybe I'm too much or that I'm too kind. And that is also what I would like us to, just reflect on today. Assertiveness at its core is about that exact alignment, right? Like how close what others feel around us is to what we actually mean and what the situation really needed from us in that moment. And let me say this clearly. I'm not speaking from a high moral ground. not here because I have got it all figured out. I'm a human just like you. I have also been called too much and too kind. And for me, this is like going to the dentist. Do you think the dentists, they never have cavities? They do. So I'm as human as you are. I'm trained in this thing and I can name things in a different way or maybe more quickly, but because we have more tool to process it as well. But I'm as human as you are. So yeah, I've been called too much, too kind, often at the same time. And as many women, probably many of you in this organization as well, have been called too direct, too emotional, sometimes irrelevant. But the conversation that I want to propose here today, or what the session, the next minutes would like to be about, is about trying not to fight those labels that have been probably very hard with us, sometimes unfair, but evolving those labels. It's about reclaiming how we show up. That is how I would like us to think about assertiveness today, because I think that you have probably in your career attend many, many sessions around assertiveness. So you know the theory, you know what it is about. Probably you know where that exact part that you need to be better is. And now it's all about like reflecting and looking at it from the version that you are showing up today. Okay? So, what is exactly everyday assertiveness? Is what you do that tell people who you are. And more than you do what you say that tell people who you are. For most people, what you say is who you are. So you cannot be seen as a kind person if you don't say kind things. You cannot be seen, for example, as confident if you never speak up. You cannot be seen as trustworthy if your words are inconsistent. So every word you say every day is a little piece of your personality that you share with others. And that is what people call the power of communication. And that is what is everyday assertiveness. If there is one thing that I hope that you get to walk away today, it's not just like inspiration, but something practical. So I want you to walk away with at least one idea, one sentence, one tool, one insightful moment, something that make you say, hey, you know what, Joan, I can do that. That is not something unreachable for me. That is real, that is human to me, and that is very doable. Because at the end, assertiveness is not about being perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about being clear. It's about also being you with intention and care every day. And it's not the same to be Diana or to be Angelica or to be Tennis. That requires, different styles. Those are different contexts. So it is very important that as you navigate assertiveness, you make sure that you are also being authentic. Authentic. Okay? Well, that's it. Let's begin. Assertiveness depends heavily on context. It's not a one size fits all behavior. It depends. It depends on who you are talking to, as I just said this example about Tenas and Angelica. But it also depends on what is at stake, how much time do you have, even how well do you know the person. Let's also think about another example, and I have this example that I usually used to say when I was working at logistics, and probably is relevant for you in the maritime world as well. And it's about thinking about someone reporting an incident, maybe on a radio, um, in a vessel, and this person is saying, "Hey, potential full leak in the engine room." That is a high risk, as you may know, and a time sensitive situation. And when that is reported, a full leak in the engine room is reported, the assertive response need to sound like probably something like, copy that. This is top priority, initiate emergency protocol. something like really short and effective and assertive, clear, direct, and actionable. Now imagine if the same person had answered to that emergency more like if you were in a cafe with a friend, saying like, "Oh no, are you okay? How are you feeling today? I just want to make sure that we are comfortable in the middle of this stressed situation." I mean, that probably would have been so kind, but it's not effective. It's not effective for that moment. It's not effective for that context. That context is an urgency. And whatever you are saying need to always take context into account, because otherwise it would not be assertive. So here's one truth that I would like you to take with you today. Assertiveness without context awareness, it can be as tone deaf, like nothing. And kindness without clarity can be dangerous, just as in the example that I just gave you. It can be dangerous if you are in the wrong setting. So you need to make sure that you are always considering context. Assertiveness with your peer isn't the same as with a supervisor or with a manager or with a client. And the same words that you are using in a context might land differently in another context depending on the power dynamics, depending on the level of trust or the emotional charge in a relationship. For example, let's imagine that you are interacting with someone that you have some unresolved tension with. That is different than, just interacting or being assertive with someone that you just met. If there is history, you need to calibrate assertiveness more carefully and still be clear and still be firm and still be kind. But probably you might need to be more strategical and provide some, this is what I call a psychological cushion, a psychological cushioning. So the other person doesn't immediately go into defense mode, which is something that happens often to us humans. So context matters, medium matters. What you say in writing can perhaps come across as much colder when you say it with your tone and your body language to support it. So let's keep that in mind as well. Being assertive doesn't mean saying the same thing to everyone in the same tone all the time. It means knowing how to adapt while still being honest, authentic, clear, and respectful. And that is I would say a complicated balance to achieve, but it's something that we can all achieve. It's not like reserved for some people. It's for everybody. If you are here thinking, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, just reach a moment of my life when I say I'm being the most assertive that I can. Well, yes, you can. And also, if you already think about that to yourself, like if you already think my assertiveness is in a good level, for example, if that is a thought that you have about yourself, the invitation is how you can keep raising your awareness, how you can show up in your most in the most elevated and conscious version of yourself at work, because from there many things are going to depend. I'm going to move to the next slide, and we're moving now to the core of our conversation. So if you have any questions or maybe situations that you would like to share with all of us in the chat, or questions or just maybe thoughts, this is a good moment to do that. We have already talked about context. Let's go to my favorite part now, which is, what is everyday assertiveness looking like? Like, what are those like reachable things that you can take away from today's conversation? The first one is, I would love you to think more about conversational goals and conversational values. Those are very different. And often we interact with people and we don't think, what is my goal for this conversation? And what are the values that drive every conversation that I get to have with someone? So you cannot be assertive if you don't have a conversational goal. And you cannot be authentic if you don't have conversational values. A conversational goal, what is it? It's a destination. It's where you want your conversation to land. And you have many conversations through the day, but you have some of them probably at work that are more strategic than others. So before you dive into those conversations, make sure that you're aligned with yourself regarding what is going to be my goal, what is going to be my destination with this conversation. But also, like how the way to get there is going to look like. That is your values. That is your values. Your values is what keeps you aligned with your true self. And probably the destination is not something that you can control. So even if you have a goal in mind for a conversation, that because there are two parts involving, that can turn out differently than you plan. But the truth is that no matter what happens during the conversation, your values are what is going to drive your response. So that's the only thing you are fully within control, your values and your response. Let your values drive your response regardless of the conversation. That is really, really important to keep in mind if you would like to exercise or to raise your level of assertiveness. It's important that you find some, probably find some time to think about your values. Is kindness one of your values? Is clarity one of your values? Is fairness, transparency your values? Like, is people get experiencing that from you every time someone, well, every time at work and every time you want to be more strategic, but is people experiencing those values when you speak up? Is people experiencing, oh, this person is kind when you speak up? Oh, this person is, yeah, is people getting clarity from your conversations? So you need to let values drive you through the conversations. Not all conversations are going to be easy, especially during difficult conversations. You need to have clarity of what are the values that are going to drive the conversation, regardless of how the conversation turns out. So something that I like to ask myself every time I need to have a difficult conversation with someone is, I'm making space for my values in this conversation. I'm making space, for example, kindness is really important to me. I'm making space for kindness is something that I often ask myself. Even when in my role, I need to let people go sometimes. I'm a people operations manager. So even in those difficult conversations, I'm asking myself, I'm I'm making space, making room for kindness to drive the conversation. That is really important for you to think about. Like you need to think about what are your values and how your values are going to show up, especially during difficult conversations. Because it would be very easy that we get to talk about assertiveness during, just easy day-to-day interactions, like maybe saying hello to someone you haven't met in a while. But the reality is that your everyday interactions are more difficult than that. And you maybe are in a room full of men often. I mean, it's the maritime industry. Probably you are often in a room full of men, and maybe you are the only woman there. So there are power dynamics ongoing. It's not interactions are not always easy and maybe smoothly. And you need to go know your goals. You need to know where you are going with the conversation and how you want to walk out from there. You need to know your values, your goal and your values. And even if the other person doesn't act or react in the way you were expecting, well, you have your values to drive you. Even if someone else is trying to get you out of your center, out of your center. You have your values, and that is going to reaffirm you, and that is going to allow you, for example, to sleep with yourself at night, knowing that you did your best because you, in any interaction, responded, align it with your values, align it with your values. There is another thing about everyday assertiveness that I also will encourage you to try, which is try more being curious than pushing people into outcomes. So it's more about having the mindset of a student than having the mindset of a teacher. And that might involve using more words like what instead of words that involve a question mark like why. So maybe you can ask more questions around, I'm just going to say an example. For example, what makes this approach the one that we have chosen? What would it look like if we try something different? What are we missing here? It's from a place of curiosity. All those examples that I just gave you are examples that show you as someone curious and not as someone that is trying to push outcomes or to judge people or to put people like or control. No, it's more like from a curious outcome, a curious outcome. And curiosity creates connection. It opens the floor. It makes assertiveness feels less like controlling someone else and more like collaborating with someone else. You are, and I think that we humans, we often forget that we are in the same boat. We're all humans. We are all humans. We don't need to fight each other. We need to, just keep it going more like into a collaboration and rather than like something related to controlling each other. We are in the same boat. We're in the same boat. Also, I would like you to think about assertiveness as a dance. Not about, not in a way like you're dancing around the truth when you are speaking with someone, because that is cruel. Not about, and I think probably you have heard this a lot, like sandwiching things. So it's not about that. It's not about sandwiching bad news when you need to have a difficult conversation with someone. It's not about saying you are doing it great, but for example, in my case, we're letting you go. No, it's not about that. It's not about sandwiching bad news or dancing around the truth. That's not kind. That's probably confusing. That's probably confusing. So when I say that assertiveness is a dance, I mean that you also leave space. It is related to curiosity, but leave a space for the others to come up and show also in their authentic self. And don't let their fears, because the other person is also experiencing whoever you have in front of you is also experiencing a human experience. It's also a human just like you. So in the other side of at the other side of let's say the coin, the person that you're talking to, that person also is feeling things, and maybe when you are in silence is feeling fear, and fear grows when people is speaking and they are just dancing around the truth and they don't get to a point. Fear increases. Fear increases. And when people aren't sure where the conversation is going, what they are going to do is brace for impact. And that is the opposite of creating a safety environment. You can create a safe environment with your words, and that is also being assertive. I think that we need to be more aware of that as humans. How do we create a safe environment with our words? How we do that? How we we provide a floor. I call it provided a floor for people to step in, how we build psychological safety when we are speaking. And that is things that, yeah, I think that we need to think more about at everyday interactions. But changing that is just a small, it just needs very little from you. The fact that you can say more things like thank you, they are going to create more psychological safety. So every time you say to someone, thank you for taking the time to meet with me, that is creating a floor. That is creating a floor for people, just to open themselves and think, okay, this is a safe space. And that might be, for example, also when you're having, I do like to give examples around difficult conversations. So when you need to have a difficult conversation with someone, it is it is just good that you say things like, I want to be honest with you because I respect you, or thank you for meeting with me. I don't have good news for you today. It's better than you do that you say it clearly, kindly, and fully, instead of, just dancing and sandwiching it. We don't need all that well, in the sandwich theory that I'm assuming that you have heard, but in that theory, we don't need that many bread to soften a truth. We don't need that. And how I know that we don't need that? Because I've been talking with people for many years and letting people go from organizations. People want the truth. You want the truth. You would like the truth. So I think that that is what others deserve always from us, the truth. So one good slice of bread that is kind and one other slice of clarity will do just fine. We don't need to, imagine that I'm having a conversation, letting someone go, and I start the conversation by saying like, hey, where's your family? Yeah. Are you playing paddle? Are you playing peekaboo? Okay. Yeah. How was your weekend? And then I deliver the news. That is probably just cruel. And or if I start saying like, hey, you're really good at this, yeah, oh my god, that way you are performing, and then I deliver the news, that is just yeah, cruel. That is cruel. There is often a metaphor. This metaphor was gave to me by someone that was training me to let people go while I was growing in HR. Yes, we received a training for that. So these people told me this metaphor that I want to share with you today. Maybe it's one that you can use in your context. So I use it especially when I need to let someone go, and it says I say something like, "This is a cake that we are going to eat together, a slice by slice, and some slices are going to belong to you, and some belong to the organization. But we both share this moment." And I say that to provide a floor for people to process hard news. And it's very important that if you want to be seen as assertive, you take time. You take time to provide that floor, that floor. And it applies to many things in life, not just offboarding conversations or hard conversations at work. It applies to difficult family talks or to feedback with a teammate. Yeah, it applies to any moment where truth and care need to coexist. It applies to any moment that truth and care need to coexist. Okay, I see you active in the chat. Um, is it okay if we read them all at the end? I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can address in the end. And also, if you want to share something or ask a question, be ready.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, let's keep it going. So if you want to show up more assertively every day, what do you need? I guess that's the question that you're all asking yourself today. Well, it's very easy what you need. You need to start using more assertive words in your own context. My assertive words are not going to be the same ones as in your context. You all have different contexts. So you need to think about what are the words that are going to reflect you in a more assertive way. You have the power to change how people experience you. You have the power every minute you get to speak a word, moment by moment, word by word. You have the power to change how people experience you. And well, on your screen right now, you will see a set of words that I put together to help, for example, build better relationships at work. So those words are words that you can choose more often if you want that, but you need to ask yourself, what for would you like to be more assertive? What for? The question to yourself is, what for would I like to be more assertive? So, would you like to be more assertive so you can have a better relationship with your boss? You would like to be more assertive so you can keep growing your career? Would you like to be more assertive, perhaps for your romantic relationship? What for would you like to be more assertive? Assertive, get specific. And when you're ready, here is a small step that is going to make a big difference. I told you it's very easy. You just need to use more words related to assertiveness in that context. And right now, finding those words is very easy. So what you will do? Probably you will go to ChatGPT. Go to ChatGPT, even if you want to go now. Go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT or any artificial intelligence that you are using and say, can you give me 20 words? Or I don't know, 15, regardless of the number. The more important thing is ask the artificial intelligence, or maybe you can do it by yourself, but you need to have a list of words that help you to be more often perceived as clear, kind, and assertive in the context that you would like to. So you can say, I would like to be more assertive in my romantic relationship. What words can I use more? And then it's going to show up with a list of words. It's a small thing, but at the minute you get to own those words as part of your everyday vocabulary, the only outcome that could have is that people is going to perceive you more in that way. And as I told you, it's a small thing that can make a difference because how you show up matters. How you show up matters. And you already have everything it takes. You already have a career. If you are part of this organization, probably you have many years of experience. You would like to get to know more people. You want to keep it growing, but you just need to say it. You just need to show up more like that. So what do we do with everything we have just talked about? Let me change to the next slide. What are we going to do with everything I just said? First of all, I want you to feel it, like really feel it. Feel how you are sensing yourself right now. Feel that moment that maybe you are picturing in your mind right now. Maybe a moment that you wish you would have shown up differently, where you would like maybe your words to have been more aligned with your truth. Go to that moment in your mind. Name it. Perhaps you are going to feel shame. Perhaps you are going to feel pride. Whatever it is, name it, own it, and then let it go. And then repeat. Because that is life. That's the work. That is what practicing assertiveness is all about. It's not about being perfect. It's about raising awareness one moment at a time. And it's about choosing clarity over perfection over and over again during your life. You are not going to, just suddenly become 100% assertive in all your interactions. No, you are human, but you will become more aligned and you will have a more grounded version of yourself every single day if you practice. We need to raise our awareness around this. This is a soft skill, but this is a powerful soft skill to have. So if you practice every day, the only thing that is going to happen is that you are going to keep it growing and you're going to show up in a more grounded version of yourself. And if you ask me, hey, John, what do you think is the most important part of practicing assertiveness? Is right there on your screen. Honor your energy. That is the most important part of this. If your energy is drained, if your energy is depleted, if you are constantly over explaining, overthinking, constantly pleasing others, you cannot be assertive from that place. You need to protect your energy. You need to have enough rest. You need to pause. You need to cultivate the things that help you be in your center, that help you return to yourself. Whatever it is, if it is praying, if it is doing puzzles, if it is being more time in nature, if it is movement, if it is silence, whatever it is, you need to cultivate a space so you can choose your words instead of reacting with them in your everyday interactions. Yeah. So saying, and it might be uncomfortable at first. Setting a boundary, that is not an easy thing to do. And you know what? It might hurt. It might make your heart race. And that's okay. That's okay. We are, as I often say this to people, we are all humans and we are all healing something. You are not the only one that have, a heart pumping, whatever you need to do something uncomfortable. That's okay. That's okay. I brought for you a list of things that are okay. And I really want you to know these things are completely okay. So if one day you find yourself choosing silence, like not saying, not having an opinion about something, the next day you find yourself with a bunch of clarity and you want to speak up, that's okay. And if one day you are perhaps crying and the next day you are feeling very proud about a situation, that's also okay. If one day you want peace and the next day you feel like ready for more movement and for more impact, that is also okay. And both things can happen at the same time. It's okay if you are speaking when you are scared. That's okay. All these things, they all coexist at the same time because you are a human feeling it all at the same time. And you are allowed. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to think, okay, today I'm going to be in silence. I'm not going to be sending an email about this. I'm going to take a moment. Tomorrow I'm going to show up with clarity. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to, perhaps you have not been the most assertive until this point of your life. But yeah, perhaps tomorrow you're going to start practicing it and you're allowed to evolve and show up in a different way. Before we close, and now that we're talking more about evolution, I want us to reflect a bit about, as I told you at the beginning, something bigger than assertiveness. Communication and leadership, they are evolving, and therefore assertiveness as well. There is what I call an old model. It's an old model, especially of leadership, that was all about control, all about commanding, all about a constant doing. Constant doing was a measure of success, especially before a pandemic. It was a measure of success. But we're transitioning. I would say slowly, but we are transitioning. And that is thanks in part to these new generations. I think that they are pulling the world into a new model that values leadership and communication with clarity, with presence, with emotional fluency. And that is very powerful when you are speaking. That is very powerful when we're talking about assertiveness. It's about doing less or saying less, but more consciously. And that is more, in the new model, is more impactful than doing more or saying more mindlessly, which is differently. So yeah, I wanted us just to take a moment to think about this transition that seems that we are all passing. And there is this quote that I carry with me from Brené Brown that says, "Clear is kind, and unclear is unkind." We need to be clear and kind. Assertiveness is not aggression. Assertiveness is not unkindness. You can speak the truth and be kind in the same sentence, in the same breath, on the same line. You can speak the truth and be kind. Remember what I told you at the beginning of the conversation about regret. This is very important for me because I often hear people say, I don't have nothing to regret. And in the latest years, psychology have proved this to be wrong. There is a lot of people regretting things, and that's okay too. There is something powerful in regret. When you are trying to practice being more assertive, let regret be your compass. Let regret guide you, not shame you, because that is different. Guide you, because we have all, this is for sure, we have all said things we wish we hadn't, all of us. And we have all stayed silent, perhaps, when we wish we had spoken up. I know it because I'm human, and I know you are human too. So if you can look at regret and say, okay, next time I will be braver, then it becomes your teacher. It becomes your signal. It becomes your call to growth and to show up in a different way. So if you're right here right now thinking, yes, this is the time, yes, this is the place, I want to do things differently, I think that you're on the right path. And it starts with a single choice to show up with more intention every day. It starts with you aligning your words with your core, with your values, as we were speaking. And let yourself be human, and kind of don't pull yourself into a dark place just because you have made some mistakes when communicating. We have all made mistakes in communication. We have all been there, done that. And we are going to probably make another one because we are humans. What we need to do is to train ourselves to be just a bit more conscious every day as we grow together. That was my message to you today. Thank you all. I hope that you went out from here with something practical. I'm going to read what is in the chat, okay? And then we can take it from there. I'm just going to check really quickly if there are any questions, because I know you have
There are no questions. Sorry, I'm just gonna jump in because we are overshooting time a little bit.
Yes, I
But
know
you
you have the
want to
networking
keep,
session.
so there are no questions here, but what I would invite people to do is write questions to us, and maybe we can do this more on a one-on-one sort of thing, but they can write to you directly if they have any questions, and you can take your time to respond to them, or rather, like, give a longer response to them so that we're not really restrained by time, so they can also get the answer that they need. I'm just gonna stop recording this.